Sure. Over the last 11 years, we've reinvented the traditional laboratory.
And what about the deep voice? Did she have the deep voice when you were dealing with her?
No, I was shocked when I heard her voice. That is a voice you don't forget in a woman.
The draw, and so they did this, what would have been a finger stick on this little nub on his arm, and
here at Theranos, we are developing new technology.
Here at Theranos, we are developing new technology.
This is an inspiring step forward. This is an inspiring step forward.
I recently finished watching the Hulu miniseries The Dropout, starring Amanda Seyfried and Naveen Andrews. A show that for 85% of its 8 episodes absolutely smashes the ball out of the park. The performances of Amanda Seyfried and Naveen Andrews are first rate. It tells the true story of former billionaire Elizabeth Holmes, who started a medical company called Theranos.
Ms. Holmes, welcome back to Mad Money.
it's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I have to tell you, in all my years, I can't recall a private company that I have to candidly, many have never heard of, getting this kind of attention and scrutiny. What do you think's going on here?
This is what happens when you work to change things, and first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
Now, way before this series came out, the real life story always fascinated me. Because firstly, I wanted her to succeed with her invention. She claimed to have revolutionized blood testing by developing methods that needed only a very small amount of blood, like a finger prick, for example. It would have changed the world forever and for the better. But unfortunately, the invention didn't work, and she knew that.
What are we going to show at the demo?
We're going to tell them that we don't have a working prototype. Right?
Our Series B closed at $165 million.
Get the money!
And whilst knowing it, she convinced several investors to invest nearly $1 billion into it. And when the revelation came to light that what she did was defraud various companies, investors, and put the public at risk health-wise, we saw the demise of Elizabeth Holmes.
This is the testimony of Elizabeth Holmes going on the record in San Francisco, California at 9 o'clock a.m. on July 11th, 2017. Ms. Holmes, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And the downfall of Theranos. She is now serving 9 years in jail.
Is there anything that you want to say to the investors and the patients who had such faith in you?
You plan to make any statements to the judge?
So the question is, how did she get away with it for nearly a decade? Was it because she's blonde and blue-eyed?
Because they will trust you.
Now the show, through its characters, does offer that as an answer to the question. And although through my channel I mainly talk about film and TV, I do want to delve into the subject matter just a little bit, because I do believe that her looks had a part to play in her rise to the top. So first off, it is worth noting that had her invention actually have worked, it would have revolutionized the whole world. As I said, I was actually rooting for it to be a success. And I guess everyone else who heard about it was also thinking the same way. So deception would have been not too difficult. But honestly, some of the things she got away with were ridiculous. She convinced people like Rupert Murdoch, Bill Gates, politicians like Henry Kissinger to rally behind her. Now, of course, some of those names on the list are quite questionable within themselves. But just think about the status of those individuals and the power that they have. Now, when I think of evil, the obvious faces pop up, and rightly so. But why do we automatically think of those faces specifically? Is it because they, for the most part, are overtly evil? But for me, the true face of evil lurks in the light and not in the shadows. Because in the light, that's where we're all looking to dwell, succeed, thrive. And some of us find it harder to stay there than others do. Some of us see the light from afar, and we want to dwell in it so very much. But then the darkness ascends. There's a recent example of this with this guest who recently appeared on the Joe Rogan show. Now, he is a past criminal. He's done many years in jail before. And he went on the Joe Rogan show professing to have changed his life around completely. So much so that Joe Rogan had him on as a guest. However, just last week, he was arrested for putting body parts in his fridge. Now, of course, it was just last week, so he's not been convicted of anything yet, but he was arrested for putting human body parts in his fridge.
Police arrested a man named Sheldon Johnson. He is a criminal justice activist, and he boasted about turning his life around after getting out of prison as recently as going on shows like the Joe Rogan podcast. Now, tonight, he is back in handcuffs, and he's facing murder charges. News 4's Ida Siegel is in Highbridge, where the crime scene investigators are still looking for evidence.
So yes, we all see the light, and we all want to be part of the light. But sometimes the darkness does ascend. And when it does, it's very difficult to stray away from it. Now, why is that? Is it because of family history? Is it because of the things we've gone through in life? Is it because of the things we see on TV? Is it because of the films we've watched? I saw RoboCop at just 8 years old. To this day, it still remains as one of the most violent films I've ever seen in my whole life. And I saw it at 8 years old. Where were my parents? I mean, my parents were amazing, so it was not their fault. But I still saw it at 8 years old. The graphic nature of some of the scenes and some of the themes discussed, they're not for 8-year-olds, believe me. But I haven't gone on to become a killer or a murderer or any of the criminal activities that take place during that film. Now, is it because of my upbringing? Is it a case of nurture versus nature? Now, say, for example, I'd watched RoboCop, I'd become a killer, and I had body parts in my fridge. For example, that's not actually happened. I promise you. I'm going to show you my fridge right now.
Right, this is my fridge. As you can see, there are no body parts in the fridge. Lots of ice cream, no? No body parts, no body parts, no body parts. There's no body parts in this fridge, okay?
So, I haven't got body parts in the fridge. No, I didn't take them out. There's no body parts in the fridge. Let's get past that. Now, if I was a criminal mastermind, could I lurk in the light? I'm thinking maybe not. Elizabeth Holmes pursued her evil in the light. And it wasn't until I watched the miniseries that I realized the extent of the things that she did and how complicit she was to the things that happened. Because prior to watching the show, I thought maybe she just made a mistake and maybe, just the invention didn't work and she just didn't want to tell anyone because she didn't want to use funding. But she was complicit in the fact that she hid the information. She was complicit in the fact that she knew it didn't work and allowed people to still use it. It got put into stores for people to use it, the general public. And the results they got back were wildly inaccurate. So she knowingly put the public at risk for greed and capital. Now, she's not the only person in history to have done that. But the manner in which she did it, in the light and not in the shadows, front and center. Again, bringing it back to the fact that she looks like this. Do you think that actually helped or hindered? Now, I can tell you right now, it didn't hinder her at all. But at the same time, being blonde, blue-eyed, and she doesn't look too bad. And if we're talking about hindering or helping, I'm more inclined to believe that it helped her case than hindered her case. So what is the face of true evil? I think since COVID in 2020, we've all woken up to the idea that maybe our governments aren't quite telling us the truth at all times. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to go into COVID too much. But what I do want to touch upon is how the governments of each country stood there front and center on TV and told us that everything's going to be okay. And then within days, they told us, you know what, everything's probably not going to be okay. And then after that, they said, oh, everything's going to be okay again. And then again after that, everything's not going to be okay. Told us misinformation on so many different occasions, all front and center, all in the light. Now, I'm not saying these politicians are inherently evil. I'll let you come to your own assumptions on what politicians are. But what I will say are these politicians are front and center, always lurking in the light and feeding information to the public that typically isn't true. If we take it back to the Iraq War, not the first one, the second one. I mean, we can't really even call it a war. It was annihilation. But what certain politicians, namely these two individuals, told us during the course of that war was all lies. Information that they had no basis to tell us. Again, for me, that is the pure definition of evil. And again, it happened right in front of our faces. These two individuals, along with many others, stood there on live TV, in Parliament, in Congress, and shared information that was false, that they knew was false, for the pursuit of something else. Now, I don't want to sit here and say that only people front and center on the cameras and on TV and well-known are evil. There's evil everywhere. Movies and TV shows typically have these characters in the shadow. Those shadowy figures that we can't see. Those shadowy figures that are puppeteering our lives. But is it the opposite, especially nowadays? Because me personally, what I'm seeing is a trend of politicians, public figures, everyone, just overtly telling us information that's not true. Doing things that are evil and not even bothering to cover it up anymore. We've come to this stage in human history where being evil is almost second nature. It's almost as if we've accepted if you do something to us overtly, we're okay with it. So I could take this back to film and TV and say, will films and TV start using this tactic in their narrative? Will they start making their evil characters more overt? But I don't want to do that. I don't want to take this back to film and TV. I want to continue to talk about this in the real world. And I want to go back to Elizabeth Holmes. Now, the show is called The Dropout, which suggests she's a dropout. And she is a college dropout. How did a college dropout manage to convince all those investors, all of the general public, that she was pure? Even now, today, if you look at the show, they try and justify the fact that she was just trying to help people. But was she really just trying to help people? And I want to take it back to the appearance of Elizabeth Holmes. I want to go full circle on, is it because she looked like this? Or am I just looking too much into this? If she looked like this, would she have got those investors? If she looked like this, would she have got those investors? If she looked like this, would she have got those investors? Is it the idea that sold people onto what she was doing? Or was it the combination of those two things? I think if you look deeper and think about the concept of evil and think about whether it's in the shadows or in the light, essentially one could say it's irrelevant whether it's in the shadows or in the light. I mean, evil is evil, right? And I would say wrong, because if you're overtly evil, you can do a lot more damage than if you're lurking in the shadows. I want to use just one more example of someone who kind of lurked in the likeness and potentially did evil things. Mother Teresa, who everyone thought for many years was the vision of purity, over the years has been accused of actually being quite shady in her behavior. Over the past few years, her whole image has been kind of deconstructed, and people have said that she's done many, many bad things, including suggestions of deathbed baptisms, forced conversions, alleged links to colonialism, racism, and alleged relationships with questionable public figures. And she is a woman, as I said, who lurked completely in the light. Now, one more example of this, another TV show that I saw recently on the BBC called The Reckoning, starring the always fantastic Steve Coogan. It tells the story of a really well-known British celebrity by the name of Jimmy Savile. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even in the early 2000s, he was a DJ, a presenter, a charitable figure. He was also made an MBE, a CBE, and eventually a knighthood. However, over the years, it's been revealed that Savile actually abused several children and adults, potentially hundreds. And he did it all in the light, never in the darkness, presenting himself with one image and then behind the scenes, a completely different image. And I want to take you back to the idea of evil. What is true evil? Is it this, or is it as simple as this? This is a bit of a departure from a normal film and TV talk. I did try and wind in a little bit of film and TV in there, but honestly, it's a subject that I thought was bubbling up in my head and I just wanted to discuss. What's your idea of true evil. Do let me know in the comments. As always, if you could like the video, if you could share the video, if you could switch on your notification button, it really helps the channel. What do you think? Should I do more videos like this where I talk about just life? Let me know in the comments as well. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I would love you to do so. And until we speak again, big love.